morning, everyone. We are going to call to order the Lander County Commissioners meeting, Town Board of Battle Mountain and Austin Board of County Highway Commissioners for January 24th, 2019. Judy, will you start us out with the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And if you all might join us in just a moment of silence, please. Thank you. First of all, a warm welcome to all of you, our staff, our fellow commissioners, and our guests and speakers and citizens. Thank you all for joining us this morning. The Lander County Commissioners may break for lunch from 12 o'clock to 1:15. Any agenda item may be taken out of order, may be combined for consideration by the public body, and items may be pulled or removed from the agenda at any time. Next will be our commissioners' report, and Art, I'll start with you if you have anything to report for us.
We had public lands meeting, and we talked mostly about sage grouse. Patsy covered that from the NACO's end, so I don't have anything to, last meeting you talked about it. I don't have anything past that. Nobody knows what's going on with the sage grouse still.
Thank you, Art. Brian?
Nothing to report.
Kathy?
Went to the Nevada Regional Water Authority meeting, and there's a lot. I put copies in the packets, but briefly they were going over AB 30, AB 51, AB 62 on the drought issues for the state of Nevada and the different bills that are changing the authority for the state engineer's office. So Judy went also, so I'll let her report on that as well.
No, that's why you get to go first.
Okay.
Thank you. Judy?
So yes, I did also attend the Central Nevada Regional Water Authority, and that was in Fallon. It, as Kathy mentioned, we did discuss the bills coming before the legislature, and a couple pretty important ones that were definitely the board decided to oppose AB 51. And also we did discuss the bill draft request that Central Nevada Regional Water Authority is going to propose, and that deals mainly with water plans for counties. And other than that, it was an interesting meeting. We had some different presentations talking about water regeneration and the different aquifers and rebuilding those aquifers and the time frame. So that was pretty interesting. There is a website, and actually I was going to look it up and give everyone the address, but the Central Nevada Regional Water Authority does have a web page, and I am sorry I don't have that information for you, but I think if you were interested you could Google it. It's got a lot of the presentations that are brought before us and additional information. So it's worth looking into. Other than that, that was it.
Thank you. I do have a couple of things to report and share with you. Actually, on the 9th and 10th of January, I did go to Washington, D.C. NACO sponsored a state association presidents and state executive meeting. So our executive director, Megan Stapleton, and myself attended. And it was just a quick couple-day session. They crammed everything in. It was really interesting. We had several panels, and we had some of the different congressmen and congresswomen there with the panels, and it was all very encouraging. It was so, we had Democrats and Republicans, and it was all talk of bipartisan, it really was. So they said, you have to remember that the media hype hits the worst, but that business is really going on in Washington DC. They really are passing laws and things as we speak. And he said, we speak to each other in the halls, it's not that bad. We do have some differences, of course, but they were really encouraged about it, and I thought it was kind of refreshing to hear for a change. We also had a couple gentlemen that actually that sit on, they are special assistants to the president of the White House on intergovernment affairs. We had the director and the deputy director both there. We had a couple of the high-ranking officials from the White House also that spoke to us on infrastructure and such. The House legislation on the controversial FCC 5G order I had spoke about before, and how that was detriment to the counties. We actually have had one of our Congress ladies that has put in a bill, it's a House bill, HR 530, and that would dismantle the controversial 5G legislation. NACO has been really strong on this with our lobby efforts, and in fact, they even tried to get a stay on it so it wouldn't go into effect. And currently, they denied that, so right now we'll see where the House bill goes, but that would change things a little bit so the counties would have more authority on what's going on with that. So we'll see, we'll watch it very, very closely. Of course, the Farm Bill naturally passed. There's an excellent article in the Bugle. They really covered that pretty well, if you saw that one too. And they gave us some interesting figures. Of the 101 new members in Congress, 79 of them actually have had a role in county government. So it's nice to know that at least they understand our side, and we'll see what comes out of that one. They were very concerned about the opioid crisis, and we had a lot of discussion on that, and they said that actually is the #1 death. It surpasses auto accidents even. So there was a lot of good information on that part. On the 14th of January, we did have the Austin Airport Board meeting, working on our budget, of course, and also working on our sign. We have such a small little sign that says airport. We're looking to see if we can maybe enlarge that a little bit more. People do miss it as they whip by, even going the speed limit on 722. We're concerned about one of our fences that really is a problem out there, so we'll probably be looking at budget to do a little bit and repair some fencing. On the 15th, I had the Justice and Public Safety call. That's my national meeting. There's a lot of discussion going on, of course, on several things in the opioid and juvenile and such, but I did want to share one thing with you that actually has passed, and that's the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act. And there's a 2018 with a lot of reforms to it, and this Prevention Act in history was first authorized in 1974. It was established to ensure states and territories meet certain common standards for how the youth across the country are treated in the justice system. It established two core protections, and one was the prohibition of the incarceration of youth charged with status offenses. That means something that wasn't criminal, like skipping school or breaking curfew, some of the lighter things, and a requirement that youth have sight and sound separation from adult inmates. Two additional protections were added in the reauthorization, prohibition against housing young people in adult facilities while awaiting trial as juveniles, and requiring the states address disproportionate minority contact. States receive federal formula grant funding for complying with these protections. So we reauthorized it in 2002, it expired in 2007, and on December 13, 2018, we passed this bill with broad bipartisan support. And as you know, we've been working with that on our budget for some time in the Juveniles House separately and all that type of thing, but there's a lot of reform on that one. Let's see, coming up, we have NACO tomorrow. Judy and I will be taking off right after the meeting today and going to Clark County. We're going to do a tour on the planning efforts of the national conference. So we're gonna look at some of the event sites and such before we go into our meeting. And this is all for our national convention in July. Naturally, that will be held and sponsored by Clark County. Some of the more interesting things, just to remind you all, and we kind of put it in our head and keep saying it, the counties actually handle 46% of all the roads, 40% of all the bridges, and 34% of all the airports. So our budgets are so important bringing this up. And we know we're going to have a divided Congress in this 1/16th session, but we're certainly looking forward to still some good things coming out of that. So with that, that ends our report for commissioners. So we go into staff reports. Keith.
All right, I wanted to point out, in the Nevada Magazine, January, February 2019, there's a real nice article in here about Battle Mountain, referred to True Grit. Battle Mountain, it talks about the town, the county, and a little bit about history and how it's going forward. So it's a good article here if anybody's interested in it. Last year, Commissioner Clark and I started working on a program for our high school students to receive credit through the high school. That's finally come through, and we are using it. I had a discussion with Russ Klein about this recently, and then he sent me an email. So we do have that program available, and it's being used at our rec center right now. The students get credit for actually working for the county. Met with the state fire marshal last week for several hours regarding new legislation he's putting forth, which is going to affect our volunteer fire departments throughout the county. It's minimum standards for required training and education.
Statewide.
And yeah, it's statewide. Yeah, it's in a BDR. I have all that information here. I'll keep you updated on where that's going. It's quite a big bill. I also met a little bit with NDF regarding our rural fire protection. That's another bill that's going into place. So I'll keep you updated on how we're going, or the direction that rural fire protection is going within the state and how it may affect the county. I also met with OSHA recently regarding our citation, and I have a direction to go on that with OSHA. I told them about the new job we're working on. They were pretty happy about that. That's one of the things they're going to look at as far as what they call closing our file. We were fined, nowhere near what I thought it would be. Our fine ended up being right at $2,500. It's cited, and I do have that if anybody would like to read them in detail. It's cited lack of training and lack of PPE. That's what we were cited for. I have an airport update, but since Tom is here from JEB, he's going to give a pretty in-depth update on our airports, where we're at with that, our grants, and the future of what we're looking at. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We are into public comment time right now. It's for non-agendized items only. Persons are invited to submit comments in writing and/or attend and make comments on any non-agenda item at the board meeting, if any, and discussion of those comments at the discretion of the board. All public comment may be limited to 3 minutes per person, again at the discretion of the board. Reasonable restrictions may be placed on public comments based upon time, place, and manner, but public comment based upon viewpoint may not be restricted. Do we have any public comments? With that, we'll move down to the consent agenda then. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and may be acted upon by the Board of County Commissioners with one action, without extensive discussion. Any member of the board or any citizen may request that any item be taken from the consent agenda, discussed and acted upon separately during the meeting. Consent agenda materials are available at the Lander County Clerk's Office for viewing, and copies are available for a nominal charge. Number 1, approval of January 24th, 2019 agenda notice. Number 2, approval of November 29th, 2018 meeting minutes. Number 3, approval of December 13th, 2018 meeting minutes. Number 4, approval of December 31st, 2018 meeting minutes. Number 5, approval of December 7th, 2019 meeting minutes.
January.
Thank you. January 7th, 2019 meeting minutes. And number 6, approval of payment of bills. Number 7, approval of payroll change requests. We did receive all the minutes except number 3, December 13th. The rest of them were here. If anybody has anything they have any questions about, we'll pull that.
On consent agenda, item 6, approval of payment of bills, I need to abstain from check 201669 because I'm employed by the vendor.
Okay,
So make a motion that we approve the consent agenda, items number 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
thank you. Judy made a motion, second.
I'll second it.
Art seconded the motion. Any other discussion? Any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. We are going to take one out of order. First of all, let's see, is,
Yes, Jerry, so
okay.
number 6.
Thank you. We're going to go down to number 6 right now. Discussion and possible action regarding the appointment of one individual to serve as a Lander County representative on the Lander County Conservation District. And its position expiring 2 years from the day of appointment, and we will be considering the following: Jerry Annis and all other matters properly related thereto. And Mr. Annis has served before, but not as a county representative, so we have his letter with our information.
Jerry, you want to come forth to the table here?
I wasn't prepared for that.
You thought we'd just approve it without saying hello personally?
Yeah, please.
Please do.
And state your name for the record, please.
Jerry Annis.
Good morning,
Any
Jerry.
comments at all on your service?
Well, you're probably aware that the Lander County Conservation District has one seat reserved for a member that is appointed by the county commissioners. That seat has been empty, I believe, since Rod Davis, former county extension agent, retired. I just finished my second 4-year term on the Conservation District Board and did not run to fill that position again. We had some good people apply and take interest in being a member of the commission, the district board, and with the intention of running or expressing interest in the position that you appoint. It's an important board and does a lot of good work. And what I'd like to do is do a little bit more communication with county commissioners. I would commit to attending as many of your meetings as possible, and work towards continuing the cooperation between the Conservation District and the County Commission.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.
I'll make a motion that we approve Jerry Annis to fill the position of the Lander County Conservation District, and with a term expiring 2 years from the date of the appointment.
I'll second that.
Thank you. It's been moved by Judy that we approve that position, and Brian has seconded. Any other discussion? Public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very
Thanks,
much
Jerry.
for your service.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 1. Discussion and possible action to approve or disapprove the purchase of 2 urban brush fire trucks in an amount not to exceed $350,000 for the Battle Mountain Volunteer Fire Department and all other matters properly related thereto. Gentlemen?
Good morning.
Hi, guys.
Ron Unger for the record.
Important, Negro.
All right, I believe you all have all of this in your packet, am I correct?
Yep.
All right, what we're here to do today is see if we could get some money for the purchase of 2 urban brush trucks.
is what we looked at, and the information is all in front of you there. Do you have any questions for me?
I do.
Okay, good.
As long as we're gonna be discussing this, is this replacing anything? I mean, why are these trucks different, and why do we need two?
Well, yes and no. We're looking at, with the wildland fires that we've been having and that we're probably gonna have, right now, we have two brush trucks. One's a mini pumper with a 250-gallon tank, and the other is pumper 2. It's a 7400, like you're looking at here on the pictures, with a 750-gallon tank. Now, at some of the meetings that we've been to, there's been discussions on taking some of the trucks to the rurals, because they presented that they would like to have trucks out in the rural part of the county. So we do have a 1985 Chevy with a 250-gallon tank. And so what the thoughts would be is if we could get two of these. The reason for two is at last year's budget, there was money set aside for fire truck. And when we got to looking into these, we figured out that we could get two of these trucks with 1,000-gallon tanks, the bigger trucks like we have, for right around the price that was set aside. Now with these trucks here, we looked at going with an urban type of a deal, to where on some of the pictures you will see to where they've got the 1.5-inch hose lays in the back. There's two of them on there. There's places for your SCBA's. It was our thoughts that if we had a fire in the hilltop area or a ranching community, we could roll these trucks out to the fire to give us 2,000 gallons, plus the third truck with the 750. We could roll those out to those areas in a water tanker and leave the big trucks, our structure trucks, in town in case something happened here. So that's the intent of these. But the reason we was looking at two is because we did have the money to do that at that point in time.
Thank you. The only concern that I have on this is in reading through the bylaws, it does say that the membership needs to vote on anything over $500 and has to pass by 2/3. And I didn't see anything in here that was done.
That hasn't been done. What we've done right at this point is gone out for quotes to see if we could get it. And once we get the quotes, and if you agree, then we go back to the department and we'll show them what we've got and go that way with it.
That seems kind of backwards to me, because when we have an advisory board, we look to the advisory board to tell us what has happened, and then we take action. I'd hate to set the precedent as taking action and then getting it back to your board to decide whether you're gonna do what the commissioners
In the
said.
past, what they've done is when we've decided, or the money has been put into the county budget to purchase trucks regardless of the amount, okay, that's when we go out and we try to figure out the vehicles that we need and stay within that amount. See where I'm going with that?
I do, but I'm gonna ask for some legal advice on it, because I hate to set a precedent on something.
Patsy, can I
Absolutely.
interject? So, I understand according to the bylaws, and I don't believe we've approved those bylaws yet. I mean, these might be the old ones, but the one thing you have to consider is, a 2/3 vote of the fire department, that's 16 members, is, if you're gonna have a business meeting and you're gonna have this presented and bring it before the members for discussion and vote, you typically don't have that many members at a meeting, because work schedules and whatnot. So I don't know how they could actually get a 2/3 vote to approve this. I mean, certainly the chief and the fire chief can go around and talk to the different members at different times and have discussions, but to actually do it during a meeting, I don't know if that's really,
I'd like to hear from Ted,
Practical.
what is the legal standing of the bylaws of how they're written in this particular situation?
We need to see the bylaws.
Because, and if I'm not mistaken, it's never been done that way from my recollection.
Never been done that way since I've been in the department.
No, it never has been done.
But the bylaws do state that.
But the bylaws do
Yeah.
state that it should be done that way.
And we was looking at after, or when we get ready to approve whatever, and it goes to the department and say, here, gentlemen, this is what we're looking at, do you need any changes? We're within the budget, if you're gonna make any changes, we do it, and then order the truck.
I understand that, I just, when I looked at it, I thought it was backwards, and
It is kind of backwards, but it's not backwards to them because that's the way they've been doing it. But it's certainly in opposition to how the bylaws are written. To Commissioner, Ron has told me in the past that these bylaws have been approved, so,
Well, it were approved years ago.
yeah.
It was
so-
2007.
Here, and just so the board knows, is because of, the situation that we got into this last year,
Right,
the bylaws are being rewritten at this point in time. So there is gonna be bylaw changes, and they will go to, the district attorney. They're penciled out, they're not done at this point, but they will be brought up to the department also for their adding or taking away, and then they'll be approved by, legal to make sure that we're legal in what we're doing, and then go in front of you folks. But that's a month down the road or so.
it's,
So do we currently have money set aside?
no,
No,
No, okay.
did have, but it's no longer there.
Okay.
Judy, in response to yours too, I've sat on associations where it's been difficult because of work conflicts and such. So they've had emergency, like phone meetings and such to confirm that meaning in the membership, if that's happened. So I mean, it still can be done, so, what are the wishes of the commission?
Well, I'd like to kind of add a little bit more, and in response to that, Brian, the situation was that this money was initially set aside for the fire department, and, there was a truck ordered. And it really, I can't go into the feelings of the fire department regarding this other truck. But Ron had been in the process of specking out and going over these two other trucks. So we had a discussion, Ron and Keith and I, and Cindy does have money in a budget, that there is, money available. It's not out of the specific set aside for this, which I believe, I'm not sure which fund it was gonna come out of initially, but there is funding available.
So the truck that was ordered, did we follow this 2/3 vote to the members?
that, Commissioner, that was ordered by the county, and under the ordinance, the county can do that.
Okay.
So this is a bunch of different things happening in 1 year that shows us why we have to fix it, and that's why I've talked to Ron and Barton, and we're trying to fix the ordinance too.
Right.
Because the ordinance allows the county, matter of fact, it's the only one that it's allowed to order
Right.
things for.
So my question is then, if we make a motion just to say that we do approve it, what are the legalities, because the bylaws state that? I mean, first and foremost, we're supposed to uphold the law
Right.
as commissioners, and that's my concern. So if it becomes a legal question, then do we just need to put it back and they have a meeting, encourage 2/3 of their members to be there? And if it is, then it comes to us and it's not an issue.
That's how I would usually recommend doing something. When I read the bylaws, I say you should follow the bylaws. Bart and Ron are here arguing that we've done it this other way all along, and I'm joining in saying that not on any side, because that's up to you guys. But that's why we need to change the ordinance.
Right.
And I think we're all alerted to the fact that the ordinance needs to be changed. And if they're gonna change the bylaws in the future, that's fine, but the bylaws that exist today clearly show that in my opinion, that the volunteer fire department should be the one deciding this.
So it's fair
by
to
the
say,
members.
so there could be legal
There
ramifications.
could be by other members
Right.
who
So
have standing.
there's
to
other
object.
volunteer firemen in the audience. Does anybody have anything to say on the matter?
Keith Piazza for the record.
Hi, Keith.
I believe reading the bylaws, and I'm not 100% sure, so I'm gonna have to double check me, but, it requires a 2/3 majority of a quorum. The quorum for us right now is 11 members, so you need 2/3 of that, which would be 7. I'm going from memory, I don't have it in my hand, but I believe that's what I read.
Well, I'll read it to you. I have it right
Okay,
here. It
all
says disbursement of purchases in excess of $500 must be passed by an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the active membership at any regularly scheduled business meeting. Proxy vote in absenteeism will be accepted. That's what it
It's
says.
not 2/3 of a quorum, okay,
Yeah.
I'm mistaken,
See, we've never done that.
thank you.
You know, and we'd like to throw in we buy a lot of stuff in that fire department as far as hoses, nozzles, that type of stuff. That the chief does order, and we've never done that. We bought the stuff and put it on the trucks, and a nozzle alone is over $500 there.
Ron, so let me ask you this, what would it do? I mean, not putting a crush on what you wanna do,
No,
but
that's okay.
if we did go back to a business meeting and we had 2/3 of our firemen there and you guys brought us an acceptance of that.
Commissioner, excuse me, they don't have to be there, they can vote by proxy.
Oh,
It says right
That's
here
right,
in the
you're correct,
bylaws.
yeah.
Well, one of the frustrating things for me right now is we're kind of getting hung up on this, which I understand the bylaws and following it and the legalities and whatnot, but, you know, as Ron stated, that, you know, they've never done this in the past, is we have a fire truck on order now that, who knows if 2/3 of the fire department really wanted it. It was arbitrarily ordered without much discussion amongst the department, much less the chief and the assistant chief. And now the assistant chief and chief are up here asking for what they want and are willing to discuss it with the other firemen to get what they want and what they need, because they're the ones that know what, you know, the experience sitting right there with the volunteer fire department in Battle Mountain, the years. They know what's needed. And, you know, the other truck, that was an arbitration that just was not discussed with
It doesn't have to be legally, the county can buy anything pursuant to, or, I'm not disagreeing with you.
I'm not arguing with you, and I understand what you're saying, is this is an issue for discussion amongst the commissioners, and I'm just putting it out there that we wouldn't be here with this discussion had the process gone the way it probably should have in the first place.
By the
with-
bylaws or by past
By
conduct?
the fire department, and, you know, if we're talking about the bylaws, is, yes, it does say there, we have not followed them. And I'm not trying to say that just because they've never been followed verbatim in the past, that I'm excusing it. What I'm saying is to now, to bring up the issue and say, well, we have to have a 2/3 vote for this and that, is what happened when the other truck was ordered. There was no 2/3 vote, and I do know that the county can do that. It is out of the county's budget. It was not out of the fire department's budget, but it was still wrong. And I want to give them the option.
So let me see if I can simplify this. What if Ron's basically coming forth and saying, hey, could we set this money aside for these 2 trucks? Could we as a board say, yes, pending 2/3 vote from the fire department?
Certainly.
Certainly.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like if the
Motion.
fire department agrees on it as a whole,
Since the money's not budgeted anyway, as the Commissioner pointed out, it's available but not budgeted, you certainly can do that under that circumstance. If the money wasn't available, then I would be legally recommending you wait to the budget year.
right, Ron, what are your thoughts on that?
That is fine, just so the board knows, this has been discussed at the fire, at our meetings. It was brought up, and there was some discussion originally, when we were looking at this, we were looking at just an extended cab. Okay, a 2-door with a bench seat in the back, which you got pictures of. And when it was brought up at the department, after the meeting, there was some discussion on that, and some of the fire department, as a matter of fact, most of them decided they wanted the 4-door as opposed to the extended cab. So we did, we went back and we got quotes. That's why you have 2 quotes in front of you, one's with an extended cab and one's a 4-door, because that was the preference of the department, or several of the members at that time. So it's not like this is a big surprise. You know, there has been discussion on this with most of the members, but if that's the direction you wanna go, I would say I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah, I just don't wanna complicate it. I'm not saying that we've done everything in the past right, and if if we haven't, that's fine, we have an opportunity to correct it, make it right going forward. There's some other things we're looking at going forward to make right that haven't been, so it's,
Yeah,
We have some more public comment?
Yes, Randy Yards for the record. I was curious if it would be easier for the board to approve this, since next business meeting, Bart and Ron are supposed to present our budget to us for the upcoming year, because I believe how it works in March, you guys approve our budget.
Correct.
So if we were to put this in our actual budget for the upcoming year, if that would be an easier way to go about this. Because we're supposed to have our budget for the year presented to us next business meeting, and then we vote on it and approve it. So if Ron and Bart had that all in our budget, so we could all look at it, maybe that would be an easier route for us to go. And then that way we all are on the same page, and the commissioners understand where we are as a department.
Does that sound better to you, Cindy?
Cindy Benson for the record.
That's all I have. Okay, thank you.
Cindy, please come up.
Sorry.
Actually, it's a good recommendation. The only situation with that is the delay in ordering,
It's a lot
The
more time
trucks.
that way, isn't it?
and that's another couple months down the road, and fire season and so forth. Cindy, go ahead.
Cindy Benson for the record. It, being this close to the budget, it actually would be, because right now, if you order it, we have the time constriction of it being here by June 30th. So it would give them more time if they waited and put it in their budget next month.
Of course, we won't be approving the budgets for, we look at it in March, but it's not approved, so it still takes a while. So what's the pleasure of the board? Do
Well,
I have a motion?
I have something I would like to add into this. Even though the county does have the authority to order this fire truck, the red one that's over there, my question's out there, why would you do that without presenting it to the fire department to begin with?
Well, that's another whole agenda item, Bill.
Yeah.
We'll be happy to talk to you about that, but
Okay.
that's
Ron?
not,
Okay.
that's
Yes,
not the
ma'am. Okay.
situation.
All right.
Thank you, Kathy.
the reason, if I might jump in here a little bit, we have noticed in the past that, and I'm gonna give you a little history. Back in the early eighties, we never did have a brush truck. All we had was structure trucks. We had one truck that would be able to pump and roll that we would use. It was a 700-gallon truck. But we started getting lots of range fires, so the 250-gallon little mini pumpers were good because you could get out on them quicker. You had 250 gallons of water, and it was mainly sagebrush. You were able to get a handle on it. Now, and we went from the 85 to the 95, which is our number one, and then I believe our international is a 2000 something, a big truck. But now these fires are all cheatgrass, and they're running fast, and so the reason that we're looking at this truck is because it's got a 1,000-gallon tank of water on the back of them, 2 of them, okay? They're a bigger truck, you can get there just as quick, you can't get into a lot of places that you can with the little mini pumpers, but you've got an extra 750 gallons of water, or an extra 250 gallons of water, depending on which truck you take. So with these trucks and the bigger trucks, we have a better opportunity of catching these fires quicker, as opposed to burning up 75,000 acres or 300 and some odd thousand acres. We still may do that, but the quicker we get there, the quicker we can put water on it without running back and forth. And as an example, last year we had a fire up here at Mule Canyon. Bart and I was on that fire. There was also BLM there. We flanked that fire and took off on it. We had 750 gallons of water. By the time we run out of the water, we were up there a mile or further, but by the time we turned around and came back to get water, we lost it. So with a 250 gallon or 500 gallon, whatever the case, you're gonna lose it better. These trucks got more water, which we need. They're better capable of doing what we need because they're double usage. They're urban and brush fire. We designed them that way, and we are looking at time. If things had went right, these trucks would be on their way to us at this point, so they'd be usable.
And
Now,
the
what
change-
Randy's saying is absolutely correct. I won't argue that point, but the budget won't be approved until we won't even have that money until June 1st. July 1st, that means we won't even get these trucks this fire season.
okay, I have an idea. So what if we had you go back, you scheduled an emergency volunteer fire meeting for this exact reason. This is the only problem I have is it states in the bylaws, and it's just, the bylaw.
No, we're,
You understand?
we're reading it.
You know what I'm saying? It's just, what if you did that, and then we could schedule it for our next meeting,
We
which
can,
is early?
or
and-
your motion can say predicated on it, you know,
I agree
so
with
just-
Brian.
Since we've,
You know, then we have the agreement of the volunteer, you know.
That's not a
majority.
problem with us, guys.
Okay,
It's
Okay.
just a time factor that I'm looking at
Right.
personally. You know, we're gonna make do with what we got, I'll be real honest with you. We'll do what we can. This is just better in the community, and our county is what this is doing. It's just an improvement, and it's
right.
it's your
and the
discussion.
change in the environment is so noted, things are different today.
They are.
Absolutely, so, who would like to start with the motion?
I'd like to make a motion to that effect of what I just stated.
Would you say that again for the
What'd
record
you
for us,
say,
Brian?
Brian?
That basically, we approve on the contingency that, we have a 2/3 vote from the fire department and, schedule it for our next, commissioner meeting to do
Second.
final approval. Would that be correct, Ted?
That
I'll
would be
second
fine.
that.
Since they haven't approved it yet, we don't know the exact amount.
Right.
So not putting the amount there is a good thing,
Okay.
but I think your motion.
Okay, I'll second that.
So, business meeting is the first of the month?
First Tuesday.
Okay, so they'll have their meeting before,
Right.
so it can be
So we
on
could
the,
agendize it.
we could have it on the agenda for
When is your next meeting?
the 14th, and your meeting would be on the 5th.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, by Brian and seconded by Art. Any other public comment? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Thank
Okay,
you.
Gentlemen, we'll see you next agenda.
Okay, so we're gonna have a meeting prior to, the county commission meeting. How many days do we have before we need the agenda request?
No, put the agenda request in right away,
Okay,
and then have your meeting. You can always pull it.
all right, I'll make that happen. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
You?
Thanks, Ron. Thanks, Bart.
Number 2, discussion and possible action regarding approval, disapproval of a parcel map for 235 Pleasant Hill Drive, Battle Mountain, Nevada, APN 011-071-09, splitting one 3.8 acre parcel into 2 parcels and all other matters properly related thereto. Hi, Kyla.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kyla Bright, Planning Coordinator for the record. This was heard and approved in front of the Planning Commission on January 9th. All notices were made in the paper and to the public surrounding 300 feet. I have Raymond Etcheverry here for any questions that you may have. I'm gonna go ahead and stretch this over here.
Morning, guys.
I noticed in the splitting, we have it in feet, and so I had to go back and figure out my acre feet, 43,560 square feet. So they're almost, they're over an acre and a half, basically, and it's pretty close to 2.
I did send this to Austin, I faxed it over, there was a mistake on
Okay.
the plain one on the square footage. This is the correct highlighted in yellow.
Did you get Kathy one?
I did.
Yeah,
Yeah, right here. Any questions from the board?
Bert? Are we headed that way with our sewer line and our water line?
For the record. Yeah, pending budget, could be 2 years before we get all the sewer to bring us to our capacity. We're currently
Okay,
slightly over the state's
Okay.
recommended capacity, but that doesn't.
yeah, we need to get that water and sewer out in that direction.
The Pleasant Hill isn't actually on that part of it, but when I'm talking about our capacity, I was thinking more of, by the golf course, what's that? Sheep Creek Road, that would bring us down to the recommended capacity. The one thing that we do have going for us is a lot of these people are serviced by municipal water, not off of domestic wells, within that mile radius of the septic, so.
Okay. 2 years, not that long.
I'll approve the parcel map for 235 Pleasant Hill Drive, Battle Mountain, APN 011071109, splitting one 3.8 acre parcel into two parcels, and authorize the chair to sign.
I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Judy, seconded by Brian. Yes, Kyla?
Before you move on, I do need to point out that the utilities signatures aren't there. So it was conditionally approved, to not be signed until those by the planning commission. I don't know if you wanna reflect that with you guys as well.
So I'll amend that motion to, state that authorize the chair to sign when the necessary signatures for utilities have been signed.
I'll second.
Okay, amended and seconded. Any other discussion? Public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we're not signing anything today with the minor. Number 3, discussion and possible action regarding the annual Lander County Local Emergency Planning Committee, PEPC, letter of promulgation and authorization for the chair to sign and all other matters properly related thereto.
This is our annual letter of promulgation that we have to submit to the state as part of LEPSI. And it's just the declaration of what LEPSI is.
It's an open letter to our citizens with actually our emergency operation plan and such, so.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Lander County Local Emergency Planning Commission letter of promulgation and authorize the chair to sign.
I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Judy, seconded by Brian. Any other public discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, and it passes. We now move on to the airport. Discussion and possible action to approve or disapprove a grant application for the design-only portion of the reconstruction and expansion of the West Airport apron and Battle Mountain Airport, and authorize the county manager to sign and all other matters properly related thereto.
I'm Tom Limnager from JUB in Boise.
Chuck Larson, JUB.
Gentlemen, good morning. Okay, do you have any questions on this for the board here?
Just to kind of lay out what we're approving. In 2019, we've got the FAA on board to rehab the west part of the apron at Battle Mountain and then expand the apron 90 feet by 215 feet as well. So what you're signing is the design for that in 2019, and then in 2020 in the spring, as soon as we can get in there, as conditions are right, we'll go ahead and construct it. But for what you're signing now is the design only. And what we were able to pull off with the FAA is this airline capacity or aircraft capacity is going to be a lot deeper than it was and a lot more higher capacity aircraft, so we can bring BLM aircraft into this area legally and not be tearing up asphalt or whatnot. I know they're bleeding into that area now and parking in here, so what we pulled off with the FAA, at least the latest, is they're gonna let us dig that out deeper and have the more capacity for bigger aircraft.
The big
out there.
tankers and
Yep,
such?
yep, and then that'll continue on to the edge out here 90 feet beyond where the edge of the asphalt is now. So what you're signing is actually more than what we're seeing in our engineering calculations, because we do the applications first. We want to be really conservative with that we have enough money in that, so that if we don't, then we don't have to come back to you and get it signed again. So the engineering is going to be around 150,000, and I've got, I think, 180 in the app. So
180 that FAA and 12,000 for us, something.
yeah,
like that,
it's everything is 93.75% FAA.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any questions?
Ted, on these grant requests, do you look over like grant requests that we put out where we're receiving money from the federal government to do things?
Usually they cross my desk at some point, right before they across your desk.
So, I mean, it's always nice to get free money, but my question is, whenever you're receiving it from the federal government, my concern would be, are there any strings attached that we don't know about? Because, I mean, reading through it, there's a lot of legalese, and it's just like, you know, am I missing something?
There are strings attached, but those are FAA, they're attached to everything they do.
Right.
And we use them on just about everything we do. So those are, we are accustomed to those strings.
Right.
But you're right, they attach it.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve a grant application for the design-only portion of the reconstruction and expansion of the west apron at the Battle Mountain Airport, and authorize our county manager to sign.
Thank you. So moved by Judy and seconded by Kathy. Any public comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you so much.
Okay, the next thing we wanted to come up, I guess moving to the next
Just a
item
minute,
here.
we're going into number 5.
Okay, yeah,
I need to do
sorry.
that. Thank you, Tom. Okay, discussion only regarding the status of current and upcoming projects at the Austin and Battle Mountain airports and all other matters properly related thereto. Now it's yours.
Okay. We wanted to go over the 7 projects that are active. We either have projects that are winding down in their very conclusive stage, or we're starting projects for 2019, and we're in the contracting stage on those. So the first project, and I know I've talked to you guys several times, but for the newer commissioners, just kind of a brush up, the project is completed. But what we did in 2018, and actually we designed it in 17, is the reconfiguration of the taxiway C coming into the runway. The FAA did not like not coming into the end of the runway at a perpendicular. So this project ended up being stuff that you do for the FAA to keep them happy, so that the next round you get what you want to do, which is the ramp that we just talked about, that kind of thing. So we did that, and that was the bulk of the money in this $1 million project. We also had to change the nomenclatures on the signs, because both of the runway numbers changed due to magnetic variations. So every once in a while your runway numbers change, then the signs have to be changed, and then off of runway 321, we moved signs back and we changed the numbers on the signs there as well. And then we moved 3 wind cones out of the object-free area. 2 of them were unlit, 1 of them was lit, and then the segmented circle had to go with the lit wind cone, so we moved those as well. So that was the project in a nutshell. Again, it's a 93.75 funded by the FAA type of project. So we got in there as soon as we could after the fire season. In fact, we were working outside the runway 12 before the fire season was even done, and then as soon as it was done, we jumped in and worked closer to the runway. We finished the job on October 18th after starting on September 5th. We finished it 6 days ahead of time. We were $8,700 under budget, and our engineering, bidding and engineering fees are underrunning drastically because we got out of there faster. There were no change orders, so our role in the project was less, so our fees are coming in, and their T&M fees are coming in a lot less. We're thinking $30,000. We do still have some work to do out there, because 2 years ago when you did your master plan, you set up this AGIS survey, which is FAA's kind of new thing of nailing down elevations and configurations on all these airports. So we got the base AGIS survey done, but when we do stuff like reconfigure, change the runway numbers, change the signs, we have to update that. So that update is underway, but it's not done, and that's the only thing that's keeping us from finalizing that project. Although we have sent the final report into the FAA saying, what do you think of it? If we change the numbers around, and finalize the numbers, are you gonna like this thing? And they like what they see so far. So we're kind of locked and loaded on wrapping up that project. The next project is the hangars that we built with local funds that you guys wanted us to engineer. That's these 2 buildings that are in gray here, north and east of the apron. And those hangars were $253,000. As it turned out, we got taxi lanes in here in gravel 6 inches deep to provide access to the hangars. Each hangar was 90 by 40.
hangar construction was actually done earlier than the road was. We didn't wanna track a bunch of junk on the new taxiways while we were building the building. So the buildings were done on December 8th, and we finalized the taxiways on December 21st. And the only thing that's left on this project, we have a final retainage, I think, from the contractor, that we gotta pay that, and then that project is complete. Then we installed a self-service avgas unit right about in this location, just north of the apron and just east of the FBO, across the road there at the FBO. Again, you guys requested us to do the engineering on that. The tanks are completed and they were commissioned on December 20th. And the only thing that held us up on that is Nevada Energy kind of drugged a feet in getting power to it. And so we couldn't commission the tank as fast as we'd like to. And Nevada Energy gave us some fiasco on this project a little bit, so they kept delaying things. And Anna was working with us very diligently to get things done with them, but they kind of pulled the wool over all of our eyes on that deal. So that got a little bit delayed, but it was commissioned on December 20th. The only thing remaining on that project is getting the operations and maintenance books, their manuals to you guys, so you know how to operate this unit. You know, if something goes wrong with the unit, you know, that kind of thing. So we're waiting on that from the contractor to wrap up the project. Otherwise, it's done. The 2019 projects, we kind of discussed those. It's the one that you're applying for. It's the design only for this ultimately $3 million job. It's gonna be a big one, because we gotta dig down now through all this 12,500 loading depth to get to something deeper to put these bigger aircraft in. So that's the 2019 project as it stands now. We actually, in the supplemental appropriation, which you may be aware of, which is FAA's new program where they play 100% of these projects, especially in counties with less population, is how it's started out. Turned out then, they threw in a bunch of commercial stuff in there, and then the bigger airports, and then everybody started throwing money in. But in October 3rd, we put in for this ramp and this extension at 100%, but we didn't get it. I think it instigated them to speed up their state apportionment funds, so they gave us this a little bit earlier than they had planned to. I think is a compromise, because they didn't give us the 100% money, but we still have an application out there for a 30-foot extension by 200 feet for BLM to the east. And that application is, I think, at headquarters. They can't even tell us in the ADO what's the status of that. They don't know anything. We called them just a couple of days ago. So we're still waiting on that to happen. And if that could happen, we could build these things together, and it would be a lot more cost effective. But we're losing time in the meantime. So that's where we stand in Battle Mountain on projects.
When we actually, do we have to dig up the runway, or do we just add to it to make it stronger?
Well, the geotech will tell us, but the chances are, if this is 12 and a half, for 12 and a half pound loading now, it's probably not deep enough.
So
we
what
probably,
kind of time frame are we looking at that we won't have access to that runway?
early in the spring, as soon as we can get in there and as fast as we can get through there and put strict requirements on the contractor.
I mean, are we talking weeks or months or?
We're talking well more than a month.
Once we start.
You're talking about a month and a half minimum, I would think. But again, we're gonna try to start before the fire season starts to get a jump on it.
Of course, they tell us now, all year long is the fire season, so,
I know,
yeah, it's
I
scary.
know,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you, go ahead. Austin, you said?
So in Austin, the red areas are the projects that have been given to us, again, design only, for this year, we're trying to get under contract now, with you guys for the engineering of these. The first one is to overlay basically the airport road coming in. That's been on your CIP for 4 years. And we'll probably have to brush up the aggregates to get to grade, and then we'll put a thin lift asphalt overlay. We probably won't be able to go past the boundary of the airport. We probably won't be able to get to the highway, because FAA has made that typically ineligible. But we're asking that question. We think, though, by their handbook, it's not gonna happen. But that's the project on that part, it's a twofold project. The other part is to extend the taxiway along and on top of the old parallel taxiway to the crosswind to the southeast, about 300 feet, 25 feet wide, so we have room for hangar development in the future. And then, in the supplemental appropriations, we actually put in for the taxiway, and we got it, but we didn't get the 100% funding, we got the 93.75, because it was on the CIP and it kind of rolled in. But we put in for the apron out here, which spun out of the master plan that the seats aircraft that come in this part of the airport can't get turned around once they get loaded. So we put in this application for 100% funding for this extension of the ramp 70 feet by 210 feet. And then you guys were interested in a hangar down there similar to one of the hangars that we built at Battle Mountain. That's this blue spot at 90 by 40 is what we applied for. Again, we haven't heard anything from the FAA on this stuff. What we found out though in other regions is the projects that the people in the ADO thought would be the high priority projects were the ones that didn't make it, and the ones that they thought were, you know, the low priority projects were the ones that were approved. So, who knows? You know, we're at their mercy.
And we have our meeting set with the FAA. When is that coming up?
There's that Nevada conference that's in April, or it's in late March, and that follows that conference pretty. It follows the FAA conference in Seattle pretty tight.
But we'll
So
know
I think it's
before
in late
then.
March. I don't know if they're gonna know anymore. But maybe they will, you know.
Thank you. Any questions? Public comment? Yes, we have some public comment. Good morning, Doug.
Morning. Doug Mills for the record.
Hey, Doug, how's it going?
Good. Hi. Just a couple comments. One is on that taxiway C realignment. One of the things that was not mentioned was when taxiway C was realigned, I mean, getting it perpendicular to the runway was great, but one of the things they did was narrow the taxiway when they did the realignment. And one of the things I've noticed out there now is that when planes are going through that section of the taxiway, they're cutting the corners. And I don't have to in my plane because my plane's small enough, but I've seen a lot of evidence of the bigger planes are cutting the corners. So
Yeah.
that hasn't, in my opinion, hasn't been great.
Yeah, and we fought that with the FAA. We
Yeah.
fought tooth and toenails to get a TG2 group to get back to the widening that existed because we knew this would be a fiasco. And we tried to get BLM, and they did. They wrote letters to the FAA. FAA is not getting away from their width criteria. And so we used tapers as best we could to maintain as much of the 50 feet as we could out there. You kind of notice that it starts out narrow and then it gets wider as we go into the tapers and whatnot, but in any straightaway places, we had to go back down to what they forced us to come down to. And like I say, we fought that. We had BLM write letters and they just.
So at this
ignored us.
point, there's no fix?
Until,
From a federal funding standpoint.
yeah, I mean.
You could widen it, but on your
But we
own.
need to keep it on our priority list, is what we're saying, if it's a problem.
I'd like you to keep an eye on it because, having experience with getting my plane stuck in the mud out there, if one of those big planes gets off and they're cutting the corner and it's muddy, they might get stuck.
We did put some aggregate shoulders out there that
Yeah.
should help, but
That'll help, but those, when they're loaded, they're heavy.
these are one of the things that you know is coming and we communicate, we talk to Doug, we even mentioned that in one of the commissioners' meetings, how, you know, they were making us narrow this thing down. But I showed you the picture of the tapers and everything, and it averages well over 50 feet wide. But the problem is it narrows down to the smaller dimension, and, you know,
Well, can we keep it on our radar, and maybe we can at least keep bringing it up?
yeah. And it could be next round of FAA criteria and requirements, they'll change it again.
Thank you.
And then some time ago, I don't remember what it was, and I don't remember the guy's name, the guy from the state that does all the airport stuff.
Kurt.
Kurt.
Yeah, he was out doing a survey of our airport up here, and one of the things that he recommended was And the reason for that is that as the planes are landing, when they're landing close enough to the end of the runway, the jet blast is blowing the gravel away from the asphalt. And now there's a noticeable step from the asphalt to the gravel, and it's blowing all that out, and it needs to be refilled. If a plane were to land short, that step is getting big enough that it could damage a landing gear and cause some problems. He recommended that get filled back in with a 2-inch rock, but he also recommended that it be colored so that it's not black, the same color as the asphalt. So there's a distinct line between the end of the runway and the actual runway itself. And that's one of the things that he recommended some time ago.
As long as it's designated somehow, I mean, we could even finish it up with cement over the top and paint the cement. I mean, it's just like any kind of step when you're going down people. If it's a dark step, you want to highlight it. So if it's something to know, they aren't sure where the end is that are coming in, we need to highlight that somehow. So what do we need to do? Do we have to wait for FAA, or can we?
It should be fairly inexpensive to just take some 2-inch grade rock and throw it there at the end of the runway for a couple of yards and make a distinction and fill in that area. And it's probably something that is gonna continue to happen over time. The more they land, he recommended 2-inch rock so it doesn't get blown out as much.
Well, I understand the rocks blowing, but if we put the rocks in cement, you know, and they were colored, or if we paint the cement or whatever we need to do, we just need to highlight a different color, that's all. So can you look into that for us?
Again, I don't know if this is eventually necessary. It's gonna take a long time for that to blow out. It's a time problem, and it's been going on long enough now that it's a problem.
Is this on 321?
It's on all the runways.
Okay, thank you very much.
There were a couple of projects I forgot to mention, if you want to go back.
And let me just finish up one more. I'm hoping as we do the revamping of the ramp on the west side there, part of the talk when we put the hangars in was that when we did that ramp project, that would also include paving in front of those hangars rather than having that be the compressed gravel, because asphalt's always better. So that's one of the things we talked about, that we didn't do it when we built the hangars because we were gonna do it at the time we did the ramp.
Yeah, I don't think that got into the scope of work, but one thing that we could do in answer to that is while we're out there with the men and the equipment is, that would be the time to get it done. And if it isn't FAA money, it could be your money, but it would be at a best cost because they're out there with the men and equipment and they're laying asphalt anyway.
Will you?
So how far do we need to extend it so that we get away from this step issue?
For the hangars is one issue, that he was talking about 200 feet, up that 25 feet. On the overrun, you know, typically they're 100 feet.
It's very long.
Right, there is a standard for an overrun.
Okay.
If we could get FAA to buy on it, maybe the next project where we touch the runway, we can get that through them. We can only try. You never know what's coming from them, you know, next.
Well, we want to take care of it though, quickly, so we may not even wait for, we'll see what you two talk about, but stay in touch over there.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
we talk pretty
You had
regular.
some more, you said?
Yeah, the master plan at Austin is being completed, and so the FAA has reviewed all the documents. You guys have looked at it. I believe the airport board has looked at it pretty closely. So we're ready to sign documents on that, and I brought those for Keith to sign after this meeting. And that pretty much wraps up the master plan after, you know, a year and a half that we've been working on it. And then the Jet A fueling system, I forgot to mention that. How could I do that? And that is the project that we've been working on diligently to convert actually the avgas to the Jet A system. And then the avgas system was actually put in new. We commissioned the avgas part of it. We didn't have any difficulty with the new system on November 15th, but when we got to put the fuel from the old avgas into the Jet A, there was a filter in there that everybody was telling us. The last contractor who installed it, the supplier, that this filter should be in there, and we opened it up and it wasn't there. So we had to get that, order that, and come down and have that installed. So that was commissioned on December 19th. And again, the only thing we're waiting on is those O&M manuals to complete those projects. So we're done there too. And I think there was a little bit of difficulty that was solved. Tyler, our subcontractor, got with the road and bridge guy, and they figured out that there were some valves left over. When Walt came to prime the pump, he couldn't get the pump primed, and we walked him through that too, so.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions? Okay, we're going to take a quick 10-minute break. You have something for me, Dave?
Yeah, I do. I just want to point out, we are still battling with the FAA over our crosswind runway. There's a good possibility they're gonna shut it down. If they shut it down, that's really gonna affect our air tanker operations. Well, it's gonna affect all of our operations. That might be something, if the FAA is gonna continue on the road we're on, we might need to look at that at budgets, and that is a multi-million-dollar project.
You know, we've taken all kinds of wind data off the AWAS. I know NOAA came up, talked to Keith, gave us the data for wind, and we could not make it fit. It's, you know, everybody says out there physically, including my guys that are out there all summer building these projects, that in the summer the crosswinds do occur and they're violent, but we cannot get that on paper so that we can prove it, that the mainline runway doesn't have 95% coverage, and that's a rule. So it's kind of frustrating. One of the things that we talked about is maybe getting a wind machine. I know when I worked for the state of Wyoming, they had these wind machines, and that's what they recorded, that's all they recorded, and seeing if we could get one of those and put it out there, right there on the crosswind and away from the AWAS, and see if we can get better numbers. But without faking the numbers, which we don't want to do, we can't make the numbers work. And we've looked at several sets of.
Well, we'll keep hoping for a wind tunnel here, okay, whatever you can do on it, because we need
We're
to
still
take
working
care
on
of
that.
it.
Yeah, I know Winnemucca has lost their crosswind, and Elko has lost their crosswind as
Holy
well.
cow.
For the same, FAA's really stomping down on these crosswinds.
Okay, we have to think outside the box, let's go.
Yeah, we gotta do that.
Okay, Michelle, we're gonna take a 10-minute break.
Brian.
Call our meeting back to order. And number 6 we have already handled, so we're moving into finance, number 7.
Let me make sure Michelle, are you on the phone?
We're still here.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Discussion and possible action to approve or disapprove the plan of corrective action letter to be sent to the State of Nevada Department of Taxation and all other matters properly related thereto.
Commissioners, this is related to the corrective actions that were set forth in our budget through Hinton Burdick, our audit, I'm sorry. And it deals with the areas that they found us to need corrective action taken in. This letter goes to the State Department of Taxation. It outlines how we are gonna address those corrective actions.
The only correction I had on it all was Judy's name at the back that goes with it when they say who voted and how we voted. And I think they may have taken care of that. I did bring it to their attention
Oh,
earlier.
okay.
But before we send anything in, we wanted that one right.
We'll take care of that.
Okay. Action from the board.
I'll make a motion that we approve the plan of corrective action letter with the corrections to be made and sent to the State of Nevada Department of Taxation. And do we need to authorize our county manager to sign, or no?
I'll sign the cover letter and then we'll
And
need
then
the chair.
authorize the chair to sign.
Yes, please.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Motion has been made by Judy, seconded by Kathy. Any public comment?
I have a question on the purchasing requirements. Do we need to advertise this?
We didn't have it on the website.
Need to have it on the website?
Right.
That's the only place we didn't put it?
Right.
Okay.
And that could have been due to all the problems we've had
Yeah.
with our website recently.
Okay.
But we'll make sure that that's done. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Aye. Thank you so much.
care of
we'll
that.
take care of all that immediate business that needed to be handled. Number 8, discussion and possible action regarding the direction the Board of Lander County Commissioners would like to take for the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget and all other matters properly related thereto. And with our new commissioners, they didn't really have a chance to get their feet wet and see where we've been and where we're going and what's going on. So now that we've had a couple more weeks to digest some of the county business, what is your pleasure?
Well, my 2 cents on it is obviously we need to lean it up, and I don't say that just to say it. With the changes in our state government and net proceeds at possible risk, our money at possible risk, we need to run, I feel, as lean as possible. Yeah, I mean, for that reason alone. And I'd like, is Cindy here?
No,
She had to step out for a little bit.
I mean, with any business, you have like a make-break, and I'd like to know what that is for Lander County to continue our operations. You know, how much does it take just to continue our operations? I'd like to know that number, because I think that would be important in giving a correct direction as far as where budgets need to be.
Brian?
Yes.
I'm not sure if you and Kathy are aware, last year we did pass limiting the amount, total overall amount for grants at $100,000.
Yeah, I have the total, it's $436,000.
Okay, but this will be for this upcoming budget. It was after last year's budget, but for future budgets, the grants are limited total to $100,000. That was really.
That's gonna be hard to work with then too, everybody is so needy.
Well, yeah.
No, but we'll see if we can keep to it. We did do that, they curtailed it quite a bit. Cindy Bryan had a question for you, I don't know whether it's something you can answer right now, I'll have to check on for you.
Cindy, I was just kind of curious as far as just what's our make break for our county? Meaning like, how much money do we have to run our county? You know, kind of a make break. You may not know that question off the top of your head, but
No, I don't.
it would be something I think I would like to know.
Okay, Cindy Benson for the record. We won't know until the 15th of February on our preliminary projections for budgets for next year on the revenue. So I don't know if you mean for this fiscal year, or do you want it for
Well,
next
it's kind of
fiscal
like,
year?
I guess, I don't know, I'm just thinking in terms of business, you know, I see you take business A, it takes this amount of money to run this business. Not to put money away, not to lose money, but this is what it takes to run the county. You know, if we ever did get ourselves in a position that we had to sustain ourselves, what is that number?
Okay.
You know, it's like if our net proceeds went away, you know, could we live off the tax revenues that we collect? It's that type of information.
So
We don't budget in our net proceeds for our regular
Operations.
Okay,
No, we
That's all-
operate
Yeah,
totally on.
okay, good.
we do sustain ourselves on that,
Excellent.
yes,
Okay.
and that's
Revenue.
why we have to cut and lean. And people say, well, you have money. Well, that isn't anything we wanna use, and unfortunately, a lot of counties have to. We're one of the luckier ones that don't have to, so.
Yes.
Thanks.
But what we need for this year is direction to Cindy for what you'd like to do, and you're saying you would like to see him cut a little bit?
Yeah, lean it up.
I would like to see that as well.
I honestly, I agree, is, you know, looking at the budget documents every month, is, of course, right now, it's hard to, you know, halfway through the year when you get those reports, but you do see a lot of, they don't utilize all of the money that is budgeted into their, so, you know, if you're not gonna use it, you can cut some, and I don't see a problem with really, you know, kind of sharpening your pencil on those budgets a little bit. I don't know as though we wanna set a real amount, say 10%, 20, 30, whatever percent, but I think definitely encourage the departments to.
Yeah. I would like to not be able to use all of the net proceeds. I would like to be able to bank some of that for future use in case we do lose, if they do cut it back.
I guess the hard part is too, because the more that we build with this administration building and our recreation center, the cost goes up, what we have to maintain, and our budget goes up accordingly. And then we have growth, which is a good thing, but on the other hand, that means that some departments need another employee. And we're saying, please be lean, please cut, and they might be able to cut a little bit, but then what they do need, a new employee, goes up again. So our direction is that we're looking to maintain what we have right now as slim as we can. So if they'd look at that, and not what they'd wish for, but what they really desperately need, and to cut where they can. And I think that's the direction we're looking at. Is that correct?
So it's workload versus the number of employees in each department,
Right.
is what you're talking about. Okay, I agree.
And something else that, as far as infrastructure, the things that are going on, I don't know if anybody of you guys have heard, but Paradise, California is not allowing those people to rebuild there or anywhere there's trees or grass, basically. So they're forcing them out of if they're going to pay their claims, they're forcing them out of the state. And we're already receiving some people out here that are buying out property from Paradise, California, because they will not cover their homes if they want them replaced in California. So you know that it's slowly coming out this way for maybe possible more growth, just in that, from that alone. It was interesting, I didn't realize there's a handful of people that have bought out properties out here from Paradise because they can't get their homes covered if they don't move out of the state of California, basically. So, and I had also on the budget, as far as the grants, I had spoken with Cindy a couple of times as far as having some backup and reporting done by the people that we're issuing these grants to. Quarterly reports or monthly reports that they send in receipts, and a report, so we know exactly what the money's being spent on. It's just not carte blanche, we give them the money and they don't send in receipts, so we know what the money's being spent for.
Kathy, you can put conditions on any one of them in any way when they come before us, so absolutely, great idea.
Okay, yeah.
Any public comment on the budget items? Okay, hopefully there will be as we go along, so they'll all be coming into you. Okay, with that, we move into correspondence, reports, potential upcoming agenda items, number 9.
I do know there was an agenda request filled out for an ordinance change for, Robin, what's your street number?
1800 East Hilltop.
Okay, 1800 East Hilltop, and it didn't make this agenda, so, and
Okay, we have a few, I think, that were carryover from last time.
So the reason that didn't make the agenda is that will require an ordinance change countywide, because there's other, and I explained this to Robin, there are other roads that have concerns over speed limits, and the DA and I have talked about it. It's gonna require an ordinance change. So we wanna get them all together. If we're gonna go that route, we wanna get them all together at once and make the ordinance a one-time change.
okay, cause I know that one of them we did discuss previously was Muleshoe,
Yes, that's the one that we spoke of, correct.
okay.
Nothing else? You have a couple from today, and then we'll have some new agenda items, but nothing that we have that we,
Yeah, there's some holdovers from last time,
Right.
and we'll take care of those.
we did cut a little short since Judy and I are heading south, but. Okay, with that, then we go into our public comment time. Again, for non-agendized item only. Persons are invited to submit comments in writing and/or attend and make comments on non-agenda item on the board meeting, if any, and discussion of those comments at the discretion of the board. All public comment may be limited to 3 minutes per person, again, at the discretion of the board. Reasonable restrictions may be placed on public comments based upon time, place, and manner, but public comment based upon viewpoint may not be restricted. Any public comment before we leave? Okay, none noted.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second that.
Motion by Judy, second by Kathy, all in favor?
Happy birthday, Kayla.
Thank you, meeting is adjourned. Oh, they have it, I left it on.
Okay, so it's loaded, fuel, keys are in it, ready to go.
Your office?
But I have something on.
Oh, well, then, okay, yeah, then we'll do the swap around. I don't know.
Did they bring it out in front?
No, the towel's out front, yeah, I can put that out there, let me get